What's going on, everybody? How you all doing? So it seems we have some interesting information today in an interview with Collider with JJ Abrams, and he goes on to talk about. He's hit with the question: was there planning in the sequels, essentially? And we're gonna watch the interview. I want to give my 2 cents on it because literally there's like 50 different articles on this thing right now. It just popped like an hour or two ago. So let's read it, let's watch the interview, and then we can discuss it a little bit. And no, this doesn't mean that your opinions on the sequels is invalid or anything like that. This is just an interview, and we're going to discuss it a little bit. So JJ Abrams was never supposed to direct more than one film in the Star Wars franchise. When he was first approached about tackling episode 7, he turned it down. He took some convincing, and then new Lucasfilm head Kathleen Kennedy's part to get Abrams to agree to sign on. And in doing so, Abrams at the time was excited about the idea of creating a foundation from the ground up from which other stories might grow. As Abrams was working on The Force Awakens, Lucasfilm wanted to get the exact 2 films in the sequel trilogy off the ground, and thus hired Rian Johnson to write and direct episode 8 and Colin Trevorrow to co-write and direct 9. The idea being that each director would build on what... I gotta enlarge this, my eyes are old. Previous filmmaker had crafted, leading to a sort of creative handoff from one director to the next. In Johnson's case, that meant following certain threads that Abrams built, likely Rey's confrontation with Luke, and dropping others like Snoke. The Last Jedi was a critical success, but was divisive among some diehard fans, owing to some of these decisions to veer left when it looked like Abrams was plotting a course to the right. Okay, so when Abrams signed on to take over 9 after Trevorrow left the project, well, he was fired, he had yet taken another unenviable task, albeit a complete different one. He had to finish a story he started, but one that had taken some alternate routes in its middle chapter, routes that Abrams wouldn't have necessarily gone down. The resulting film, The Rise of Skywalker, was similarly divisive, as Abrams brought the story back around to some ideas he had percolating while making The Force Awakens, specifically owing to Rey's parentage. Personally, I enjoyed the creative blah, blah, blah when I spoke to Abrams recently on the press day of the 10th. So this is what he went to say. Let's check the interview out.
One of the things I liked about the Star Wars franchise that you guys did was that the creative handoff between you and Rian Johnson, which I felt, it was letting filmmakers take their own stories and take the story where they wanted to go. And I felt that played out in a really interesting way. But I know not everyone feels that way. And I'm curious for you, as the person who helped get that foundation off the ground and also concluded it, do you feel like that trilogy would have benefited from planning out a very strict 3-movie story from the very beginning? Or do you enjoy that kind of creative freedom to kind of take the characters different ways and kind of see how it goes?
I've been involved in a number of projects that have been in most cases series that have
I didn't like that body language
that begin the thing where you feel like you know where it's going to go, and then sometimes it's an actor who comes in, other times it's a relationship that as it's written doesn't quite work, and things that you think are going to just be so well received just crash and burn, and other things that you think like, oh, that's a little small moment, that's a 1 episode character, suddenly become a hugely important part of the story. And I feel like
I'm gonna pause right there. So it almost seems like he's talking about something becoming a hugely important part of the story that he didn't intend it to be. So I'm guessing the fans made it that way. Am I understanding that correctly? I don't think that should ever be what should be on the forefront of anyone's mind. Should just be continuing the story. Which in fact is something that Rian said. He said, I don't, doesn't matter what the fans want. We got to complete the story. It just so happens that the story was his story and it wasn't really George's story.
Character suddenly become a hugely important part of the story. And I feel like what I've learned as a lesson a few times now, and it's something that especially in this pandemic year, working with writers, the lesson is that you have to plan things the best you can, and you always need to be able to respond to the unexpected, and the unexpected can come in all sorts of forms. And I do think that there's there's nothing more important than knowing where you're going. And there are projects that I've worked on where we had some ideas, but we hadn't worked through them enough. We had sometimes
You're really dancing around
we
it.
weren't allowed to do them the way we wanted to. We had, I mean, I've had all sorts of situations where, you know, you plan things in a certain way, and you suddenly find yourself doing something that's 180 degrees different. And then sometimes it works really well, and you feel like, wow, that really came together. And other times you think, oh my God, I can't believe this is where we are. And sometimes when it's not working out, it's because it's what you planned. And other times when it's not working out, it's because it didn't. It's like you never really know. But having a plan, you know, I have learned in some cases the hard way, is the most, you know, critical thing, because otherwise you don't know what you're setting up. You don't know what you're, you know, what to emphasize, because if you don't know the inevitable of the story, you know, you're just as good as your last, you know, sequence or effect or joke or whatever, but you want to be leading to something inevitable. Okay.
So to touch on what he's talking about here regarding knowing the inevitable, that's probably obviously the most important thing. You want to know, you know, you have a start and you have an end, and the middle stuff is important, but at least, you know, the ending will let you correlate your ship, navigate your ship to where the story is going to end. And with what we learned from Daisy Ridley about her not knowing her lineage and JJ not knowing, you know, I can't blame JJ for I mean, he seems like he's dancing around the whole thing, and he's so political about how he's answering the question. If you look at his body language, you can just see that he's just distressed. Like the whole thing seems like it was not really up to him. It seems like it was just something that was in other people's hands, and he was just kind of dancing to their tune. And I feel bad. I really do. I mean, I feel bad for us as Star Wars fans that didn't enjoy it. And again, if you did, more power to you. I hope you go on to influence others to enjoy it as well. But from this creator's viewpoint, from this channel owner's viewpoint, it seems that there really wasn't any sort of plan. And it's only revealed now, you know, months and years later after the fact. And it's unfortunate because, you know, looking at his face, I can't be like, oh, he's done this and this and this that I didn't enjoy in the film. It almost seems like he seems more distressed than I do, almost, you know. And it's like, I can't imagine what that must feel like to be able to have all these different ideas that he was talking about here and have them, let's say, shot down, or to have ideas that he thought would be really good and then crash and burning, and then other ideas be really, you know, well received with fans. As at the end of the day, not knowing where the end line is probably the most frustrating thing as a filmmaker. I can't even begin to understand what he must have gone through, and to have his name attached to that professionally on such a grandiose scale of a project. It must have been very stressful, to say the least. That being said, I don't feel like his treatment for 7 was all too creative. 7 was probably my favorite of the sequels. I really enjoyed Kylo. I think Kylo Ren is probably one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars, in Legends and in canon. I believe his execution wasn't done as well as it could have been. But again, the more information that comes out, I don't think we can really hold the writer and director that responsible, because it almost seems, and just judging by his, his mannerisms and his facial expressions and his cadence with how he speaks, I don't feel like it was really all up to him, like he had full reign. I feel like almost Rian Johnson may have had more control than JJ did. Feels like his arms were kind of tied a little bit, and that can never be a good thing when you're trying to do something creative. But I also saw a comment, someone said that fans don't really understand the creative process behind creating a film, and this couldn't be more true. A lot of fans just look at a movie and they're like, well, just do it, make it. There are a lot of things that go into this. And when Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, there were now so many constrictions, I believe, in my opinion, that really bound a lot of these hired writers. I mean, you could think of these directors and writers like freelancers, so to speak. come on for a project, you know, write 7. Okay, we got Ryan to write 8. Okay, and we got Colin Trevorrow to write 9. All right, cool. Now, once you're done, you're done. So the fact that there was no, from what I'm understanding, from what he's saying, and of course I can't speak for him, but from what he's saying in this interview on Collider, is that there wasn't an end plan, a finite plan in the end. And this is something that we have heard from John Boyega. This is something we've heard from Daisy Ridley in terms of her lineage. Now, that may mean we had a plan for other things. Kathleen Kennedy says that Palpatine was always supposed to come back. So all I can do is present the information that we're given. I can give you my opinion on it, but it's really ultimately up to you guys to decide how you feel. And regardless, let me end with this, regardless of there being a plan or not being a plan or whatever, if you like the movie, that's all that matters. That's it. So don't let anybody tell you that, you know, you're not a Star Wars fan because you like the sequels, and don't let anybody tell you that you're a hater because you don't like the sequels. At the end of the day, opinions are subjective. So enjoy what you like, don't enjoy what you don't like, just be respectful about it. That's all I got to say about this. I will see you guys in the next video, and I'll see you guys on the gaming channel tonight. Love you. Catch you later.
I love democracy.